One night of kindness, a single dad and his daughter changed her life. You won't believe who he is. In the quaint town of Maplewood, where leaves danced lazily in the autumn breeze, one night turned into a turning point for families. Mike, a single dad, donned his usual cap as he fluffed up the colorful candy apples and packed snacks while volunteering with his spirited 10-year-old daughter, Lily. Their small home, filled with laughter yet bustling with the weight of various jobs, felt like a cabin in a golden forest, a warm cocoon amid life's challenges. On that chilly evening, they were joined by Sarah, a single mother whose eyes gleamed with warmth despite the heaviness on her shoulders. She spoke about her teenage son, Ryan, whose dreams hung by a thread, and for a moment, it felt like they were lost in a world of their own, chuckling at poorly told jokes while forgetting their struggles. That laughter hung in the air, a fleeting shield against the harsh realities they faced. But the night turned darker when they learned about Ryan's brush with the law. It hit Mike hard, stirring memories of his own childhood and the obstacles he had overcome to become a father Lily loved fiercely. He felt an undeniable empathy for Sarah, the heartbreak in her eyes cut deep, and the last thing he wanted was for another child to get swallowed by despair. As school events buzzed around them and neighborhood parties flickered with lights, Mike stepped in like a guardian angel, offering guidance to Ryan. He didn't just see a troubled boy, he saw a spark waiting to ignite. Together, they nailed down train schedules, developing drills, and building strength. Emotions flowed as they shared dreams of brighter tomorrows. Yet whispers of judgment loomed larger. "Troubled boy," they'd say. Mike knew the pain of prejudice, the sting of scorn. But for Lily, he was determined. Nothing would stop him from helping Ryan. If anything, it only fueled his drive. He had a past, one that spoke of resilience and promise, a former athlete whose dreams fell to the wayside but whose heart still held on to hope. As the community potluck approached, a sudden twist kicked in. Ryan and Mike found themselves at center stage before the town, everyone seated, eyes glistening with curiosity. Just when everything seemed aligned, an incident erupted, loud and heart-wrenching. An explosive argument broke out, spotlighting Ryan's past and potentially derailing all they fought for. Would their acts of kindness shine through the shadow of doubt? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Mike prepared to reveal his story, he felt a tidal wave of determination. Every setback he faced rushed through him like a movie reel. This wasn't just about Ryan, it was about the community rallying together, a testament to the power of kindness. Will they embrace change and witness the strength of second chances, or will the deep-rooted biases of the past overshadow their hopes? The moment of truth hung thick in the air, and the answer seemed fracturing like the autumn leaves swirling in the wind. Perhaps, just perhaps, everything hinged on that night. The murmurs in the crowd became a low rumble, anticipation cracking like dry leaves underfoot. Mike glanced at Ryan, who shifted nervously beside him, his eyes darting around the sea of faces. The weight was heavy, the moment was now. Mike swallowed hard, heart racing like it did before a big game, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. "Everybody," Mike began, voice steady despite the storm inside him. "We've gathered here tonight not just for food and cheer, but for the hope that lives in every single one of us." The faces swooped before him, a collage of curiosity, skepticism, and a hint of understanding. Lily gripped his hand tightly, her small fingers warm against his skin. A smile crossed his lips as he thought of her. He needed to do this for her, for Ryan, and for the community that had seen so much pain. "I'm not here to excuse Ryan's past. What happened, he continued, feeling the room lean in, hanging on his words. "But I am here to stand beside him, because I know what it's like to be judged, to feel like you don't fit in. I was that boy once lost in the shadows of my own mistakes. As he spoke, a flicker of hope sparked in Ryan's eyes. Mike could feel the tension in his shoulders ease just a bit. Maybe this story could bridge the gap between judgment and second chances. I grew up in a tough setting too. I lost my way. But it's those very moments of weakness that led me to where I am today. It's why I always strive to be the best dad I can to Lily, and why I want to help Ryan find his way back. His voice softened, the sincerity pouring out. We've all stumbled. What matters is how we pick ourselves up and keep moving forward. The gasps carried through the crowd, a whisper catching in the air like a gentle breeze. There was compassion blooming where judgment once thrived. Mike seized the moment, hoping to weave their hearts closer. Everyone in this room has the power to unite and support one another. We can lift Ryan up instead of letting him drown. We can be a community that believes in second chances. From the back, a neighbor spoke up, but how do we know he won't just fall back into trouble? Mike felt the heat rise, but instead of backing down, he stood taller. Great question. That's where mentorship comes in. We have to be willing to invest not just in Ryan, but in all our kids. We can guide them, teach them, and show them the right path. A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience, hearts beginning to open like the bright autumn flowers around them. It was a beautiful sight. The warmth of connection began unfurling despite the chill in the evening air that had settled earlier. But just as they seemed to be reaching for something together and understanding, the atmosphere shifted again. A voice rose above the rest, laced with skepticism. And what if you're wrong, Mike? What if he's just fooling us all? The uncertainty hung in the air like a dense fog, thickening the excitement of the moment. Mike could feel the palpable tension return. He turned to Ryan, who looked ready to unravel at any second. This was the turning point. Would Mike's words hold, or be swept away like dry leaves before the next gust of wind? Mike's heart raced as he focused on the boy beside him, searching for his courage. Show them who you really are. Would Ryan rise to the occasion or fall under the weight of doubt? As the eyes of the town, filled with fear and hope, bore down on them, the moment cracked open like an egg. What would emerge from their fragile shell? Ryan stood frozen, his mind racing as he searched for the right words, the kind that could cut through the skepticism hanging heavy in the air. He caught a glimpse of Lily, her bright eyes filled with concern and faith. In that moment, he realized he wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for her, for Mike, and for an entire community that he had let down before. Taking a deep breath, he felt an unfamiliar warmth spreading through his chest. I know I messed up, he began, his voice slightly shaky but growing steadier with each word. I can't change my past. I can't take back the pain I caused. But I want to change, I really do. The hushed crowd leaned in, their uncertainty palpable yet hopeful. It's hard to believe someone can change. I've been in those dark places, feeling like there was no way out. But I've been working on myself. I've been meeting with mentors and attending meetings. I want to do better. Some faces in the audience softened. A few people exchanged glances, their defenses slowly lowering. It was a tiny crack, but enough for Ryan to cling to. He looked at Mike, who nodded encouragement, and then he faced the crowd again, channeling his emotions. I want to show you that I'm more than just a kid who made mistakes. I want to be someone you can trust, someone who deserves a second chance. Gradually, he noticed heads nodding. A murmur of understanding floated through the crowd, lifting the fog of doubt just a little higher. Encouraged, Ryan continued, we've all been there. We've all had moments that made us feel lost. But I believe in helping each other. I promise that if I'm given this chance, I won't waste it. Mike could feel the tension in his chest easing, replaced with warmth and pride. Ryan was taking his stand, and it was a sight to behold. As the last echoes of skepticism faded, more voices emerged in support. Maybe we should give him a chance, someone called out, breaking the last barrier of silence. Instantly, a wave of agreement rippled through the crowd, lifting the weight that had anchored them to doubt. Lily squeezed Mike's hand tighter, her face lighting up with a smile that melted his heart. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes, a mix of disbelief and hope battling for dominance. He was being seen not just as a boy who had stumbled, but as a young man willing to fight for himself and for the chance to do better. "When can we start?" Someone shouted from the crowd, igniting a flurry of conversation and plans, all centered around uplifting Ryan. The collective resolve felt electric, a beacon of unity slicing through the remnants of negativity. But just when it seemed like everything was beginning to fall into place, a shadow crossed over Ryan's face as he recalled the deep trenches of the past still lurking over him. A flash of doubt flickered behind his eyes. What if this was just a fleeting moment of kindness? What if this doesn't last? He whispered under his breath, the weight of uncertainty creeping back in. "Then we'll be there to lift you up every single time," Mike said, sensing the turmoil in Ryan's heart, and igniting a glimmer of hope. The weight shifted, doubt was replaced with the promise of community. There was a long road ahead, but for the first time, Ryan was willing to try. As the meeting drew to a close, Mike felt the warmth of a supportive family emerge around them, binding them together in a powerful web of hope. Yet, lingering at the edge of the crowd was a figure watching closely, eyes dark and unreadable. What would this person bring to the narrative? A new challenge, or an unexpected ally? The next chapter loomed on the horizon, tangled with promise and tension. As the crowd began to disperse, Ryan found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The air was charged with a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Everyone's expressions shifted from skepticism to a flicker of hope, but Ryan's own heart was not yet at peace. Would they really stand by him when the going got tough? "Let's get started on that community project," Mike suggested, clapping Ryan on the back. The warmth of his friend's gesture solidified Ryan's resolve. "I've got a few ideas, and I know you do too." The anticipation of what lay ahead started to shine brighter than the shadows of doubt still lingering in Ryan's mind. Lily smiled at Ryan, her eyes sparkling. "We could do a fundraiser. Or maybe a cleanup day. People love getting involved when they see something good happening." Excitement began to build around them, and Ryan felt a flicker of possibility igniting in his chest. "Yeah, we should definitely do something that brings everyone together," he agreed, catching the infectious energy of the conversations around him. Plans were forming, dates and tasks being tossed around like confetti. Just as they were starting to feel organized and united, the unease loomed large again. Ryan's gaze drifted to the figure who had been watching quietly. The man stood off to the side, arms crossed, an unreadable scowl on his face. There was something unnerving about him, and Ryan couldn't shake the sense that this person knew a lot more about him than anyone else. "Who's that guy?" Ryan asked softly, nodding toward the stranger. Lily's expression shifted. "I'm not sure. I think I've seen him around before, but I couldn't tell you his name. Seems like he's waiting for something." Mike squinted. "Let's not worry about him right now. We've got work to do and a community to rebuild. Focus on what we can control." In the back of Ryan's mind, however, doubt festered. What if this figure was someone from his past, someone who knew the truth about his mistakes? The thought made his stomach turn. As they finalized plans and picked dates, laughter and chatter filled the space. But Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that the indicators of a storm were brewing. The excitement around him was bright, yet the shadow of that man stilled the atmosphere for him. "Hey, Ryan." It was Mike again, snapping him out of his reverie. "Join us for dinner at my place tonight. We can brainstorm more ideas." "Definitely. I'd love to," Ryan replied, though his mind was still partly drawn to that stranger. After a few more minutes of excitement, the crowd began to break apart, families heading home, friends exchanging laughter. Ryan felt lighter, but when he glanced back, the figure was gone. Did he slip away unnoticed, or was he lurking just out of sight? the tiniest knot twisted in Ryan's stomach. Mike and Lily continued chattering excitedly, but a sense of foreboding wrapped around him like an old, familiar blanket. As they made their way toward Mike's home, hesitations danced at the corners of Ryan's mind. He wanted to believe in the kindness of his community, but ghosts from the past have a way of creeping back into the present at the worst possible times. What if the person watching him had a dark secret or worse, a grudge? Either way, Ryan had to confront whatever was waiting in the shadows. The road ahead might be bright, but what lurked in those shadows could change everything. What did the stranger want, and was Ryan truly ready to face the past he thought he could leave behind? Ryan walked the familiar streets toward Mike's house, the warmth of the evening sun slipping away into a cool breeze. As they stepped into Mike's backyard, the laughter and chatter around a grill momentarily eased the tension coiling in his stomach. But that feeling quickly returned, thicker than before, as he glanced back down the road. The street felt like it held secrets, lines drawn between him and the shadowy figure who had interrupted his newfound hope. Mike and Lily quickly got to work setting up the table, their excitement seeming to fill the air with something almost electric. "So what ideas do you have for the project?" Mike's voice snapped Ryan back into the moment. Yeah. "We could definitely think bigger," Ryan said, trying to sound enthusiastic, but the figure crept into the edges of his thoughts, like an unwelcome shadow. "What about a neighborhood picnic? A day where everyone can bring their families, enjoy games, and share food?" Lily clapped her hands. "Yes. That can ease the ice between people. We could even have sign-up sheets for volunteers." Her enthusiasm was contagious, yet Ryan felt like he stood on a precipice, peering into something murky below. "Exactly." Mike grinned, tossing together ideas as if they were pieces of a puzzle waiting to be completed. But Ryan felt fluid excitement knot into an unresolved tension. Getting closer to his community meant bringing forth his past, a past he feared might surface unexpectedly. As the smell of grilling burgers filled the air, Ryan pushed a breath out. He needed this to work. He needed them to trust him again. "What if I made a speech?" he offered hesitantly. The moment was suddenly quiet. Mike and Lily exchanged glances, then smiled broadly. "That would be great. You can rally everyone up," Mike said, excitement bubbling in his eyes. Ryan's heart fluttered at the thought, but doubt quickly overshadowed it. What would he say? As dusk descended, they finally gathered around the long table, food piled high, the laughter around them echoing with a warmth he hadn't felt in ages. But amidst the chatter, his mind drifted back to that man. Was he really gone? Or merely waiting for the right moment to strike? Once the meal had settled into an easy hum, Ryan excused himself to the corner of the yard for some air. He leaned against a tree, trying to shake the lingering fears. Memories of a different time flooded back, the nights filled with shadows, whispers of disappointment that had chased him for so long. Thoughts of the figure weighing down his thoughts. How much did he know? Then, a rustle behind him caught his attention. He turned, heart pounding. To his astonishment, it was a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old. She wore a bright red dress that swayed as she approached, a smile gleaming on her face. "Are you Ryan?" she asked, her voice small yet certain. Yeah, I am." He couldn't help smiling back at her sweetness. "Is it true you're helping us all?" she asked, eyes lit with hope. "Trying to," he replied, suddenly feeling an overwhelming sense of responsibility. "What do you mean?" "The projects my mom says you can make our neighborhood better. She believes in you." His heart swelled at the weight of her words, the sincerity in her eyes. "Thank you," he said softly, feeling a flicker of the hope he had nearly lost. But just as her smile brought warmth, another shiver of doubt shot through him. The voice of the stranger echoed in his mind, the past was always lurking behind. "Do you think people can change?" he asked her, a question that felt heavier than he intended. Her eyes widened for a moment before she answered. Yes. We can all be better. He wished he could believe that with every ounce of his being. She turned to leave, and suddenly Ryan wanted to grasp onto her innocence, to guard it like the fragile good it represented. But before she disappeared into the laughter of the gathering, she looked back. Don't forget the past, but don't let it stop you. Her wisdom lingered, a spark of realization mingling with his fears. What if she was right? Could he really overcome the shadows of his past? As he rejoined the party, the weight of that question pulled at him. The warmth of friendship surrounded him again, but behind it, the threat loomed. What if the man returned? What did he want? And more than that, how would Ryan confront a past that seemed insistent on catching up with him, just when he was ready to move forward? The night continued to thrum with life, the sound of laughter, the flickering glow of candles, the smell of grilled food. Ryan felt himself pulled back into the moment by the shared joy around him. Yet, that little girl's words still echoed in his ears, forming a fragile thread woven through the fabric of his thoughts. As Ryan settled back into his seat at the table, he took a deep breath. He looked from Mike to Lily, both catching up with their friends, their faces aglow with camaraderie. He felt a pang of longing not only to belong but to be truly seen. What did they think of him? Did they know? Hey, Ryan. Mike's voice broke through his reverie. What are you thinking about your speech? The question hung in the air, heavier than usual. Ryan forced a smile, his mind racing. This was supposed to be a moment of hope, a step towards something better, and yet it felt like a leap off a cliff. What if he faltered? What if his past chased him down the moment he opened his mouth? Yeah. Just thinking about how to really capture everyone's attention, he managed, trying to sound more convinced than he felt. Lily raised an eyebrow. Just speak from the heart. That's all anyone really wants. Ryan's heart pounded at the thought. Speaking from the heart also meant facing the truth, the pain he hoped to bury. It felt impossible. But Lily's encouragement shimmered like sunlight on water, reflecting off his uncertainties, and for a fleeting moment, he allowed himself a sliver of hope. As the chatter flowed and the stories rolled out, Ryan noticed the men at the far end of the table. They were a mix of familiar and unknown faces. Some lived nearby, others were just passing through the circle of life in the neighborhood. Conversations fluttered among them, punctuated by bursts of laughter. Ryan shifted uneasily, the feeling of being an outsider prickling at the back of his mind. Do you want to see the fireflies? A sweet voice piped up beside him. It was the little girl from earlier, her red dress glimmering in the dim light. He hadn't even realized she had returned to his side. Fireflies? He repeated, and an involuntary smile crept onto his lips. Yes. Come on. She grabbed his hand, her small fingers curling tightly around his. Ryan felt an unexpected warmth surge through him. The two made their way towards the edge of the yard, moving past clustered adults engaged in lively debate. As they stepped away from the noise, the quiet felt overwhelming, deep breaths in sync with the soft rustle of leaves. Look! She said suddenly, pointing towards a small cluster of flickering lights dancing against the backdrop of the darkening sky. The fireflies twinkled, their brief luminescence a burst of magic. They're beautiful, Ryan marveled, momentarily forgetting his worries. Just like hope. She exclaimed, her innocence illuminating the darkness that had crept in around him. Ryan chuckled, a sound filled with a tinge of sadness. Hope is a little more complicated than that. Oh, no. She said, pouting slightly. Hope is real. If it wasn't, would I be here with you now? Her earnestness struck a chord within him. She had a point. Perhaps he could allow himself to believe. Okay. You're right. Hope can be simple sometimes, he admitted, smiling genuinely. Suddenly, the electric thrill of the moment was interrupted. Ryan's heart began to race as he spotted that familiar figure standing at the edge of the party, half hidden by shadows, the man who had haunted his thoughts. What's wrong? The little girl asked, noticing his sudden stillness. Losing sight of the fireflies, Ryan's eyes narrowed at the figure. The man's gaze met his, a knowing look that sent a chill racing down his spine. "Stay close to me," Ryan whispered, trying to hide the storm brewing in his chest. As the laughter and joy continued behind him, a different kind of tension unfurled in Ryan's gut. Could he really confront the past that threatened to engulf him? With the little girl clutching his hand tightly, Ryan felt the weight of dual lives pulling on him, the fleeting presence of shadows and the bright promise of hope. How would he navigate this night of change? The moments ticked on, and his pulse quickened. Would the man approach him, or was he just another ghost from a time Ryan had thought behind him? Questions filled the air, heavy with uncertainty. What would happen when tomorrow dawned? Would his past rear its head, or would he rise above? The cracks in his resolve deepened, but Ryan stood firm, holding on to a flicker of hope, clinging to the little girl's belief in him. Yet, that figure loomed in his mind. As partygoers obliviously celebrated around him, the air thick with possibilities and dread, Ryan knew one thing: he was about to face what he had long tried to escape, and he had to decide if he would finally break free. Ryan felt the warmth of the little girl's hand, steadying and grounding him. Despite the pulsing fear in his chest, she embodied a purity that stirred something deep within him, a glimmer of vitality that felt almost impossible to embrace. The distant laughter from the party was only a backdrop now, fading in and out as he tried to handle the storm swirling in his mind. The shadow was still there, lurking at the edge of the celebration, just watching. Ryan's heart thundered, every instinct screamed for him to flee, to hide, but the little girl's grip was a lifeline he couldn't let go of. "What's that man doing?" she asked, tilting her head curiously. Ryan glanced sideways at her, unsure of how to respond. He wanted to protect her innocence, to shield her from what he feared was creeping back into his life. "He's just someone I knew a long time ago," he finally said, searching for the right words. "Is he scary?" He hesitated. "Not to everyone. But to me, well, it's complicated." Complicated is just a big word for messy. "You don't have to be scared, Ryan. You can choose." The girl's confidence was a soft, bright force, making him feel lighter, even if just a bit. He looked back toward the man. The shadows seemed to shift around him, and Ryan could almost hear the heartbeat of his past echoing through the air. "Maybe you're right," he whispered, though doubt crawled through him, gnawing at his resolve. What if he confronted the man only to find himself back in the clutches of regret? What if it would only unravel further? The girl released his hand for a moment, stepping closer to the flickering fireflies, oblivious to the tension. "Hey! Look how they dance." Ryan watched her twirl and giggle, as bright as the tiny lights illuminating the darkness around them. Her laughter was infectious, sending a ripple of warmth through him, pushing away the shadows for just a heartbeat. "Dance with me," she called, spinning with carefree delight, expecting him to join her dance. And for a moment, the world narrowed down to this: her trust in him, her joy spilling into the night, the fireflies lighting up the sky like tiny stars. He felt something within him crack, just a little, the veneer of fear beginning to peel back. "I think it would be fun," he said, surprising himself. The knot in his stomach eased slightly as he stepped towards her and twirled her around, embracing the simple magic of the night. But from the corner of his eye, he saw the man move. It was as if time slowed down around them. Ryan's heart quickened again. The past was approaching, relentless and unyielding. "Hey!" the little girl shouted, still caught up in her glee. She bounded up to him, her face lighting up. "Don't you feel the magic?" What if she was right? Ryan felt a pulse of hope and fear dance in tandem within him. He had a choice: run or face it. The edges of his past and the possibility of a brighter path intertwined at this very moment. "Maybe it's time," he muttered, half to himself. With a deep breath, he stepped toward that familiar shadow. The man was still watching, but no longer hidden. Stay close, Ryan said to the girl, his voice steadying as he tightened his grip on her hand again. Are you going to talk to him? She asked, her eyes wide. Yes, he answered, though he wasn't so sure what words would come. Could he really do this? The air was thick with tension, yet surrounded by laughter. Ryan understood now that this night was a crossroads. He was teetering on the brink of something unknown, and it terrified him. But the fireflies danced around them, reminding him of the hope he had nearly given up on. As he stepped forward, he felt his heart racing. Would he finally confront the ghosts of his past? All at once, the laughter of the party faded, the weight of the moment pressing down hard. Ryan had to take a deep breath. What awaited him beyond this threshold? He turned to look at the girl one last time, drawing strength from her unwavering belief, a reminder that hope could flourish even in darkness. As he approached the shadowy figure, he realized that the moment of truth had arrived. Would he step into the light or would he retreat into the shadows? Ryan approached the shadow figure, heart racing, each step feeling heavier than the last. The laughter from the party dimmed, becoming distant echoes replaced by the thumping of his own pulse. The man stood alone, a rock in the chaos of the celebration, and Ryan felt a storm of memories rush in, threatening to upend him. Who is that? The little girl whispered, her voice barely above a breath. It's someone from my past, Ryan replied, his words thick with uncertainty. But I'll handle this. He hoped his determination would cover over his deepening dread. Okay. She sounded so cheerful, so trusting. It struck a chord in him. Her innocence made him want to be brave, for her sake. As he neared, the features of the man became sharper, a familiar jawline, those sharp eyes that once bore kindness transformed into something he couldn't fully decipher now. Ryan, the man said, his voice low, laced with an emotion that felt both inviting and ominous all at once. I didn't expect to see you here. The man's expression was unreadable, a mask carefully crafted over the years. This is quite the gathering. Yeah, it is, Ryan managed, but the words felt like stones lodged in his throat. The past rushed back, a mixture of laughter, anger, and regret filling his mind. What are you doing here? I came to see old friends. What about you? Ryan clenched his jaw. This man was still a part of his life, a reminder of choices that led to nowhere good. He hesitated, glancing back to the little girl, her bright eyes dancing with anticipation. She was still blissfully unaware of the heavy conversation brewing in the air. He started, before pausing. How could he explain? How could he protect her from the shadows yet acknowledge his own? Ryan, the man interrupted, his tone shifting slightly. You don't have to pretend. I know what you're going through. Anger flared within Ryan. What do you know about my struggle? You left. I chose to step away. But it doesn't mean I didn't care. There was pain in the man's voice. We made different choices. I see what time has done to both of us. The little girl tugged at Ryan's hand, sensing the heaviness in the air. Daddy, who is he? Is he your friend? No, sweetheart, Ryan said quickly, kneeling down to meet her gaze. He forced a smile, not wanting to let her see the turmoil raging within him. Just someone I used to know. But he looks sad, she observed, her innocent honesty cutting through Ryan's attempts to shield her from the reality. Before Ryan could respond, the man spoke again, softer this time. I'm not here to hurt you, Ryan. I'm here because I wanted to apologize. Why now? Ryan interrupted, anger sparking in his chest. After all these years? There's been time for reflection. I've wanted to reach out, but I didn't know how. I'm not now. Ryan snapped, surprising even himself. The girl's eyes widened, and he softened his tone instantly. I'm sorry, please, the man said, frustration clouding his features. Let me finish. Ryan took a deep breath, tightening his grip on the girl's hand as he scrutinized the man's face. This was the moment. Was he really ready for whatever lay across this bridge between them? I changed, the man continued. I want to make amends. Just tell me, is there any part of you that would be willing to forgive? Ryan's heart raced, battling the urge to turn back, to run. But he looked down at the little girl, whose eyes shone brightly with trust. Forgiveness, he murmured, the word hanging in the air like a fragile thread. It's not easy. Nothing worth having ever is, the man replied, vulnerability surfacing in his voice. Ryan felt the weight of choice press down on him. Could he open the door to the past, or was he simply inviting chaos into his new life? As silence enveloped them, the laughter of the party faded out, and only the sound of his own heartbeat remained. What would it take to let go? In that moment, standing between the past and possible redemption, everything felt precariously poised. Would he forge ahead, or retreat once more into shadows of hurt? As his thoughts swirled, the world around him dimmed, and Ryan had to decide, would he take that step into the unknown? Or would he let his daughter's innocence guide the way forward? Ryan's heart thudded louder than the distant music. Each breath felt labored, and the moment stretched like spaghetti, long, thin, teetering on the edge. He was caught between the ghosts of yesterdays and the bright possibility of a future he dared to dream for his daughter. The man in front of him was the key to secrets he'd buried deep. Forgiveness is a big word, Ryan finally said, forcing his gaze to meet the man's eyes. They held something softer now, a hint of vulnerability that wasn't there before. The man looked older, time etching lines of regret across his face. What made you think you could just show up after vanishing? Because I believed I had to face the music one day. There was a hint of conviction in his voice. I thought it would be better for all of us if I stayed away. But I see now I should have fought harder. The little girl squirmed beside Ryan, her little fingers fitting tightly between his hand. Daddy, can we go back to the party? I want cake. The innocence in her plea broke the tension, cutting through the heavy air. Ryan forced a smile, painfully aware of how her joy shone bright against the backdrop of adult woes. Just a minute, baby. He brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, reassured by her presence. Yet, the weight of the man's gaze burned into him. How do you think she would feel if she knew her father was torn by decisions of the past? The man's voice shook slightly, as if he understood. She's not just your daughter, Ryan. She's part of our story too. Our story? Ryan spat, fighting the fire swirling inside him. You don't get to say that. You left without even looking back. I know. The man took a step closer, and Ryan instinctively stepped back, warding off the intimacy of their shared history. But the truth is, I've been haunted by the choices I made. By the people I hurt, including you. I realized I can't change the past, but I can try to make things right. Ryan's breath hitched. Could he actually consider this? Was redemption worth trying to carve out of this chaotic reunion? He found himself scanning the crowd, the party blissfully unaware of this dramatic pause in his life. Bright lights, laughter, everything felt so far removed from this moment. He looked down at his daughter. The little girl was doing her best to stay patient, her eyes darting from him to the man as if waiting for a conclusion she couldn't understand. Honey, sometimes grown-ups have things to figure out. I think he needs to say sorry. Then we can all have cake. She declared boldly, her faith shining like a lighthouse through a storm. Ryan chuckled, even in his conflicted state, and he glanced at the man. See? Even she knows you can't just show up and act like nothing happened. Talk to me. What do you really want? I want to help, he answered, each word weighed down by unspoken depths. I want you to forgive me and to help you father her, if you'll let me. I could have been there for you, both of you. Now, I'm here, willing to make amends if you will allow it. As chills coursed down Ryan's spine, he weighed the offer. Could he trust this man? The trust he'd lost and never thought he could regain? I don't know, Ryan said finally, his voice cracking. I need to think about it. Just don't take too long, the man replied, looking at the little girl. There was hope in his eyes, but also fear. With a resolute nod, Ryan felt a shift within himself. Maybe this man had changed. Maybe forgiveness was a path worth exploring. As uncertainty loomed, he wrestled with the question at the forefront of his mind. Could he let go and allow this man into their lives once again? What impact would it have on his daughter, on his own heart? Before he could dwell too much into the past, the weight of the moment pressed heavily on Ryan, urging him to make a choice, a leap into the unknown. And in that room filled with laughter and music, beneath the twinkling lights, a decision was waiting to be made. What came next could change everything. Ryan stood at the crossroads, the weight of the moment pressing down on him like a storm cloud. The man in front of him remained steady, waiting, hoping for a glimmer of understanding from the son who had grown up with his absence. The party thrummed with life behind them, the laughter of children, the sense of community, everything he yearned for, and yet here he was trapped, one foot in the past and the other tentatively nudging toward the possibility of a brighter future. Look, Ryan began slowly, his voice faltering. You've been gone for so long. How can I know you're really different? You say you want to help, but what does that even mean? The man took a deep breath, running a hand through graying hair. It means I want to be there for you and your daughter. I realize now that I missed out on the important things, the moments that matter. I can't change what happened, but I can't stay away any longer. Tension continued to coil around Ryan's heart, but the innocence of the little girl tugging at his hand reminded him of what he had fought for these past months: redemption, acceptance, and a sense of belonging. I need to know you're sincere, he said, his voice a little stronger now. How can you prove that? I'll prove it through my actions. If you'll let me back into your life, I'll show you I mean it. I'll be there every step of the way. You won't have to shoulder this alone, he replied, his intensity shifting to a plea. I know I don't deserve a spot in your park of memories, but what you and your daughter are building together, I want to be a piece of that. The little girl chimed in, her eyes sparkling. Can I call you Grandpa? If you want to help us, you can be our family. Her trust radiated brightly, casting aside the shadows of doubt. Ryan couldn't help but crack a smile. Spending time with children brings out the hope in us, the man said, looking fondly at the girl. I'm not here to disrupt. I want to connect. As he spoke, Ryan's heart softened. Hope was a tricky thing, it could lift you sky high or plunge you into darkness. But he thought of Lily, her laughter, her innocence, and how that unbreakable tenacity had carried them both through storms before. What would it take for you to really earn my trust? Ryan asked, desperately needing clarity to peel back the layers of hurt. The man straightened, determination flooding his voice. I'll start by being honest. I'll support whatever you two need. I'll even help you with the projects aiming to uplift this community. Every time you need me, I'll show up. No excuses. You won't regret it. A surge of emotion swelled in Ryan's chest. This was it, the bridge he could cross, or the edge he could fall from. He glanced down at the small girl beaming up at him, waiting for him to make a choice. All right, he said finally, his voice steady now, you have a chance, but understand that this is completely on you. You mess up again, you won't see us again. The man's eyes glimmered with gratitude. You can count on me. I won't waste this opportunity. With excitement pulsing in the air, Ryan felt a warmth blooming, a rush of relief and an unexpected wave of new beginnings. The memories of pain hadn't vanished, but locked within them was the potential of healing. Now let us get back to that cake, Ryan said, a smile breaking free like the sun after a long storm. The girl squealed, pulling him along as they raced back toward lively voices and twinkling lights. As they approached the gathering, laughter wrapped around them. Hey! We're back! The little girl announced, her joy infectious. Laughter echoed, mixing with the chorus of cheers, and Ryan caught a glance from Mike across the gathering, nodding in approval. The sheer delight in the air enveloping them felt like a warm embrace. As Ryan returned to the circle of friends and neighbors, he understood this was still one step in a long journey of transformation, but it was theirs to navigate together. Each face beamed with encouragement, their acceptance igniting sparks of hope. The man stood there, maybe not quite as a father, but perhaps as a guiding presence willing to nurture the roots of their community once more. Ryan looked down at the little girl beside him, her eyes shining with relentless joy. He had witnessed enough anger and pain in his short years, it was time to allow the promise of myriad new possibilities to blossom. "Okay everyone, who's ready for cake?" he shouted, the buoyancy of new beginnings lifting him. Moments flowed seamlessly around them, friends shared a meal, children danced, and the world just felt right for that night. Maybe the road ahead would still twist and turn, challenging them to face bitter truths along the way. But in that moment, surrounded by laughter, connection, and the brightness kindled in hearts, Ryan understood, a family doesn't stop at blood, it blooms in compassion and shared experiences, all tethered by hope. And that was more than enough. But before you go, don't leave without taking part in this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure you see even more transformative tales. Comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. We want to hear from you. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans stand together, so show your support.